This is definitely my spiritual journey album. Like when I decided to stop drinking, I call that a spiritual awakening, and me allowing myself to touch on all those memories. All of these things that happened to me is what made me who I am today, whether that be the good stuff or the bad stuff. I always use this analogy. Like when Jay-Z said it took him his whole life all the way up until Reasonable Doubt to write Reasonable Doubt. Same with Nas, all the way up to Illmatic to write Illmatic. And Book of Ryan, I feel like this is that album for me, even though I do have albums before this. Like everything that I went through in the music business, everything that I went through in life, it's just leading up to this album. It took me 5 years. It took me a long time. It took everything out of me, mentally, physically, and financially. Like I walked out of the studio 170 pounds, sleep deprived. Like when I finally got the last master, I just broke down, cried. My big brother used to come into the house drunk all the time. He used to always get into these big fights with my dad. I just used to be like, yo, it used to cause so many problems. I didn't want to look like that. So I used to look at my brother like, nah, man, I'm not doing that. 21 years old, I had my first drink. It was with Dr. Dre. It was like a little party that he was throwing for Marshall. He offered me a drink. And I just like, I didn't want to turn it down. I wanted to fit in. You know, it's like I'm in the music business now. Let me do as the Romans do. And I paid the price for it. As I became an alcoholic in the business, I started drinking Bacardi straight with Marshall. I didn't like the way that tasted, but it was something about the burn that I was kind of drawn to. Once I found Bacardi Limon, that was my introduction into alcoholism. The funny thing about my addiction is I was gonna keep it secret from a creative perspective. Not that I was ashamed of it. I just looked at it like, Marshall was already doing that. I went on a tour for my Layers album, and I started talking to people individually, and they would tell me how much me talking about it helped them. And once I felt that energy, I started feeling like, man, okay, this is like, you just look at the way that my journey went. It's like, why would I go through all of that just to get to this point and hoard all that wisdom and knowledge? Plus I feel good, man, just knowing that it's helping people. I'm more aware than I've ever been. I've always been aware, but before I put myself in situations where I would go in and out of it. All of my other albums were just moments of clarity. This album, it's just me dialed in all the way through. And that's my life. I'm dialed in 24 hours a day. And that's basically what I mean when I say that, without trying to be too stay woke movementish. It's my mind state 24 hours a day. It's not about being like politically inclined or nothing like that. It's just being sharp and aware. I'm in control of everything. And I feel like that's the best way to be as a man. I see a lot of people after they get out of high school, they figure, all right, shit, I'm done learning. The whole knowledge thing, that was cool. I appreciated that. Now I'm gonna go on and be an adult and never learn anything again. They don't read books, they don't do anything. All they put into their minds is fucking world star hip hop and Twitter. It's the same with rappers. Like we try so hard and we so hungry in the beginning, and then we get into the game and feel a little bit of success and think that we're on autopilot. We're not. One of the main things that drove me is when I got back cool with Marshall, when we started back really, not when we first started talking, but when we got back clicking like comrades again. And it was like, he was rich when we stopped talking, but he's really rich now. I get around him and I look at how successful he is. You know, you at the studio and you can see all the plaques and all of the accomplishments. And then you look at how much he's in the studio and how hard he's working. And you like, damn, what is he working toward? And how is he staying so hungry? So it's just like, if somebody on that level can be like that, why shouldn't I always put the craft first? I felt like I needed to put myself in a position where I can no longer be distracted, by, excuse my language, bitches, no longer be distracted by nagging ass motherfuckers, no longer be distracted by anything. My 24-hour-a-day focus, because this is not a job, it's a lifestyle. It's just like boxers. You can't get wasted all year round and then go to camp for 90 days and think that when you get in the ring, you're gonna perform the same as you would. Just kept yourself in shape year round. If you live it, you last longer. Try to stay in shape, lyrical shape the whole time. If I find myself getting in creative patterns that I set for myself, I try to break those patterns. I try to pick a beat that I wouldn't normally pick. I try new cadences, I try new flows, try melodies, I try anything that I can try, so I'm constantly feeling like that I'm growing. Boblo Island is an island that's right on Detroit River, and it has an amusement park. And it was there all the way up until the late 1990s. So we couldn't figure out which one was more popping, the actual boat ride to the island or being on the island. Boat ride had like parties. It was like a bunch of kids our age. That's where I lost my virginity. That's like popping. So when I was in Miami with Cool and Dre and they turned the beat on, I heard the sample and she was saying Ferris wheel, and it immediately made me think of the island. So I just started reflecting like that. I just started writing. I was like, yo, I want to get somebody for this. So I called Logic first because Marshall was working on his album. Logic murdered it, went for about 50 bars, toe tagged it. I was asking him about shooting the video. And then, he started talking about his tour schedule, and I knew I had a bunch of stuff coming up. So I hit Marshall up because I was like, yo, I think this song could be something. So sent him the song without Logic's verse. He toe tagged it. Now I was thinking to myself like, damn, I wonder if I can just put all of the verses together and make it one moment. Couldn't do it. The song would have been like worse than the longest Slaughterhouse song. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just make it 2 versions. I'm around Marshall a little more. Our schedules are a little more compatible to shoot a video. So I just made Marshall's version the main version, and I made Logic's version a remix and just put them both on the album. So hopefully when we release them, it'll be 2 separate, really dope moments for hip hop and for lyricism. Ring the alarm, the caterpillar keeps firing. Oh, hey. We in a war where butterflies keep dying. It seems to me that a lot of times people are willing to tear down the caterpillar in order to praise the butterfly. Like, if you're gonna give me props, don't you dare disrespect Redman, because without Redman, there is no me. So if you diss Redman, don't big me up. Like the connection between the butterfly and the caterpillar, and sometimes we forget that evolution process. I personally feel it's also like that in sports. If you're anywhere from a point guard to a small forward, there's a derivative of Michael Jordan in your style somewhere, whether you like it or not. And it's like that in the creative process too. You can be inspired by something even if you're not listening to it all the time. You can be inspired by it if it's good. I never abandoned the usage of like skits and stuff like that, because the first person I ever worked with in the game was Dr. Dre. The way that he makes albums is kind of like embedded in my brain. The whole caterpillar butterfly thing, that's kind of what that is. And Eminem and Logic just kind of go off on their own tangent. And once again, I get my ass kicked on my own song, but it's so great. It's so great, I love it. I feel like it's a miserable business. No disrespect to anybody, but I could see a lot of people and I don't even really have to know them that well. And I can just tell that they're not happy. Like, they put everything in front of their happiness. First of all, a lot of people are seeking validation. They're chasing the next check and they're chasing the next thing in the rollout, the next goal. And then you get wrapped up in this chase. And in the meantime, your family, all the real shit that matters, the shit that's supposed to matter, the shit that you don't realize until you're looking at it in retrospect and it's too late, they're just suffering. You ever seen that video of Mike Tyson? He's doing an interview and they looking at these amazing accomplishments, these belts, and he's like, this shit is nothing. It's garbage. He's just throwing belts on the floor. It's nothing. I bled for it. He was like, but you know what's important? Seeing my daughters grow up. You know what's important? My family. Like, you realize that after the fact. My wife came to the open mics with me. She's my best friend since 17 years old. Never should have had a day where I was disloyal to her. I never was disloyal to none of my friends, none of my guy friends. I didn't fuck none of their girls. So why would I fuck a girl behind her back? Sometimes I think you can go through life and you don't know why you do certain things. I didn't realize I had anxiety. I didn't realize it until I started going to therapy. That's the type of shit, the mind frame that you get into in this business, and it's like, yo, you're supposed to do drugs. You're supposed to drink. You're supposed to. When I was in those patterns and shit, I wasn't happy. Like, when I decided to get sober, I was miserable. And I see it. I see it in all my peers, most of them. No dollar amount or accomplishment, achievement. None of that means nothing. True meaning of happiness is like family and your parents and shit like that. Like, I want to have a great relationship with my parents. I want to leave here sharp with my family intact and my daughters and my sons to only know what it feels like to have a complete functional family unit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's happiness.